Welcome back to the Bullpen podcast, where we spotlight local business leaders and uncover the strategies that drive both personal and company success. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Mike Swenson, President and CEO of Mel Foster Company, 100% employee-owned electronic solutions provider that's been innovating since 1924. With over 40 years at Mel Foster and more than 2 decades leading the company, Mike brings deep insight into leadership, culture, and how to build lasting success. Mike, welcome to the Bullpen. Thanks for joining us today.
Drew, thanks for having me today.
Yeah. So let's jump right into you and the company a little bit. You've been with Mel Foster for more than 40 years and have led as president since 2001. That's a lot of time for a lot of things to change. But what's changed most significantly about your own leadership in that time, and what's kind of stayed the same?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And when I first heard it, there's a lot of consistency, I think, and I look at leaders that we had before me and what we're doing now in some of the approach. And some of those things that haven't changed are, building trust with your team, making sure that you have high integrity in what you do. So, moving the company, being around since 1924, let's say our company has morphed several times in what it does and how it grows. So, that kind of like going back to, what you need to do to make sure the company is relevant going forward. I would say, things that have changed, I guess the pace of change has changed, if that makes sense. I think we've been through some experiences like COVID, and we're a field sales organization primarily. So can you imagine, it was March 15th of whenever COVID, we kind of deemed right when when COVID was getting started that we're a field organization and we can't see customers anymore. Is that potentially a big problem? Absolutely. We had to, within a matter of weeks, and I'm very proud of our effort there. How are we going to operate in a new environment? That's probably the most extreme example I have through my leadership career, where we had to, suddenly react and respond and change our business. And we came out with a plan within a couple weeks, a high-level plan. We're going to do more marketing. We're going to use Teams and video more. How do you use it? Getting trained on it and all that became super important. And also we just did planning around basic sales training, because they weren't taught to use online tools or prospect or visit customers this way. That's just an example of what needed to be changed in terms of that responding. There's the pace of things changing is quick. AI is now coming on, and that's another change that, is going to be very big going forward. So.
Yeah, no, I've certainly got some AI-related questions here down the line, but touching on one of the points you started with, just on how important trust is, and obviously as an employee-owned company, how does that ownership structure really influence your leadership style and the company culture and just overall trust among just everybody at any stage in the organization?
Yeah, it's great. I didn't set it up. I was around when it was set up, and now that it's been set up, it's actually worked very well for us. As a leader, I always like to build consensus management. You're not going to get everyone agreeing with you all the time, but I have a lot of smart people around me, getting that feedback and then making actions. And the ESOP takes that up a notch, right? Because everyone's shareholders around me, and we all have a vested interest in making sure we're all successful together. So I would say the ESOP is kind of the way I kind of want to run a company anyways, because, but it adds more skin in the game for everyone. And I think, for us, that structure has been advantageous because from a recruitment retainment perspective, hey, you're going to come to our company and you're going to be a future owner. That can be really powerful. And ESOP stats are actually really positive. 75% of ESOPs don't go out of business, which is actually saying something, because companies, there's a lot of reasons why companies go out of business, and they grow they grow more. No surprise when you have everyone bought into what you're doing, especially through shares, you're going to be more successful. And the structure also, we're 100% S Corp, so that gives us very favorable tax treatment. And we can use that money for acquisitions, for strategic initiatives. And we definitely use that to our advantage. And it's been a good structure.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, being around for more than 100 years, the company obviously being set up in a certain way before you got to the position you are in now, actually, kind of balancing that tradition of what really started with the company and kind of driving innovation. How do you balance a lot of those teams?
Well, we started talking about it earlier in the podcast, but there's certain
Mhm.
core values and ways that you conduct yourself, right, as leaders and as employees. But then also you have to say, definitely there are going to be reasons to adapt to be more relevant and just being kind of hyper aware of when some of these inflection points happen in a business and how do you respond to them. You don't always have to respond, but there's certain ones you say, you know
Uh-huh.
what, that's going to be around for a while. Early in my career, and give them tons of credit. By the way, we have no one in the Foster family in our company anymore because of the ESOP, but Mel Foster founded it. His son, Gene, who was a real visionary, took it over. I learned a lot from him. That's part of what I think on these leadership podcasts is everyone has certain mentors that shaped them. He's in that category. But just giving an example, before computers were even used in business, or I even knew anyone that owned one, he actually bought them for us. And he says, I think these are going to be important to our business. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure how.
Wow.
And back then, he didn't even know the use cases. I mean, it was rudimentary Word and Excel, but I mean, someone
Uh-huh.
to have that insight. And guess what? He drove familiarization. So we were ahead of everyone in the adoption curve. That was an early lesson I learned. If you feel like something's going to happen, run to it. Don't be afraid of it. There may be fast failures. You don't want to make tremendous failures that cost your company a lot of money. In that
Uh-huh.
case, I have a sense of urgency to keep moving. If we would have stood still with the customers we had 30 years ago, we wouldn't be around today. We have a whole new customer base, whole new technologies. So that was ingrained in me early in my career.
Yeah, that I think that leads me really well into my next question here, especially just because talking about pivotal decisions, and you touched on it earlier too, in kind of COVID throwing everything on its head, and talking about, I mean, it was just adding computers before there really is a defined, all right, here's how we're going to use these, and here's how it's going to benefit us in terms of a very strict number standpoint. But is there any
Yeah.
other pivotal decision, or if you want to elaborate on any more on the COVID discussion too, but any kind of those pivotal decisions that turned into a real turning point to help shape the way the company was going?
Yeah, I think for me, the realization, and all of us have it as leaders, you sit down and how are you going to grow? By the way, we're wildly successful in what we were doing 15, 20 years ago, right? But that
Mhm.
wasn't going to get us the growth that I wanted to deliver for our shareholders. So we embarked on an M&A strategy, an aggressive one. So we bought 9 companies. So I'd say that's been real pivotal to who we are.
Mhm.
70% of our revenue today is actually not the original company anymore. We went from 24 team members to 75 in a period, the last 7 years. We bought 3 companies during COVID. That's an interesting side stories. Buying companies, you don't actually get to meet them live, but we did that. So for me, that's probably one of the biggest pivotal decisions. And guess what? It drives really good share price. Also, it makes our company more stable. And the classical M&A models are driving for efficiency. Just a side note, I didn't lay anyone off. It wasn't driven to try to strengthen companies we bought versus try to drive bottom line numbers right away. And we're actually okay with companies being accretive after like 3, 4, 5 years. We're not looking for the quick hitting gain. And we have that luxury because we're an ESOP. I don't have to report to the street. So for us, I think that's been super important. And where I was going with that is that as a classical M&A model is efficiency, drive efficiency. We certainly do that. My main job right now is to help support areas from a services perspective. And the services are HR, CRM, strategy. And then the areas do what they do best. And guess what? That drives value because we're letting them run free. They don't have to worry about all the business side of things. Although they're involved, we get feedback, but they don't have to be concerned about it. But I'm most excited about is that being larger has helped us create differentiated advantage. So In the last 4 years, I created a marketing and a new business development area underneath me that have been very positive for our company. Classical sales models are go out and see someone and sell product, but that's a classical model. Future sales models are create a multiple touch points. Touch points could be marketing. It could be a video. It could be a technical seminar. It could be an email. Ultimately, we do like to see people. It's a more rich experience, but I would say that to me was very pivotal to what our company's about today.
Yeah, I think that does a good job of going into one of the next things I wanted to talk about is just how wide a territory and how large a team you have, and obviously through the M&A side. Are there any kind of challenges that you faced in scaling the business to that wide to kind of instilling the culture of your team into a lot of these places that you've acquired, while also keeping, the core of the business, keeping it personal and customer focused?
We talked about
Hmm.
values and culture early on, but you're getting new people and new ideas. So you don't want to tap that down and just say, this is our way, do it. You get that feedback. But I think for us, first of all, due diligence. Generally, when we're buying companies, we'll look who's going to be around. Is there a fit with how we manage, how they conduct themselves? We do look at that closely. We've turned down some deals just because we just didn't feel like it'd be a good fit with us and the way, we operate from a culture perspective. So upfront due diligence is important. And I think reinforcement, we're around companies that get bought all the time. They're carrying different business cards 3 years later. Things really didn't change. Come in within 90 days and full integration. Now we have the luxury, we don't have back end manufacturing. It's not as complicated for us, but we'd rather get that kind of all out of the way. And then communication becomes really key. And that should have been brought up much earlier, actually, in our discussions, but making sure they know what the sense of purpose is for the company, where you're going, what you're trying to achieve. And I'm here serving basically them because they're shareholders, but really having them work with you together to understand that vision and execute on it. For us, actually, what's been pretty actually it was touching, but when we talk about culture is after we've had actually talked to them after they've been acquired, not that long afterwards and get their feedback. And generally it's super positive because of the communication. We do have a caring atmosphere, empathy, right? Really wanting to help
Hmm.
them, not just from a business perspective, but, if there's anything we do for them personally that, is part of what we can do to enrich their lives, we'll do that. We do a lot of like charitable contribution events together, things like that to build bonding. Um, we stepped up town halls. I get on meetings and we have a transparent management style. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're thinking. And then here's, kind of setting that pace for what we're going to do in the future.
That's certainly really wonderful. And I think especially going into, I guess the technical aspect of how your company operates and just the electronics and semiconductor industry. And kind of obviously how, like I've heard you say, just the change is changing fast. But what trends and innovations are you most excited about right now?
Yeah, and I'll give a little historical perspective. We've all been through this, but if we look back, now I was around when cars were invented, but there's some major innovations that happened that propelled the future, right? And it's tended to be more serial, phones, electricity. Right now, we have multiple simultaneous mega trends going on. So that generates so much excitement in terms of future growth. The electronics market is supposed to be $1 trillion market by 2030. That gets me excited. That's
Yeah.
a significant. And the trends are IoT, electrification, robotics, AI, 5G. All these are coming together right now in a big way. So our customers are adopting parts of what I just mentioned or all of it. So the advancement side of it is going rapidly. That drives consumption of electronic devices, which is music to our ears.
That's great. No, I think I just got one more here for you, Mike. For business leaders in other industries, what lessons can you give or kind of portray a little bit on what they can take from the way you and Mel Foster have adapted and continued to thrive really over 100 plus years in the business?
Yeah, I guess a few things come to mind. One is hang around people that are thought leaders. They have great ideas. You have great ideas. We've been in industry groups and also peer groups. We've been in one peer group since 1960. We open kimono, share best practices. So you don't always have the best ideas, and realize that. We have to admit that and be willing to listen to others and exchange ideas. So that, I look at, it's been pretty significant throughout my career and our company's success. And I have to go back to just being hyper aware of what changes are going on around you and do something about it. And if you don't do anything about it, you could be left in the dust. So I'd rather get ahead of it. AI right now, we're making tremendous investments ahead of a lot of people. Like, how can it help our business? We have task force set up. We have user groups set up. We're investing right now in doing AI data analytics, which I'm excited about, using a private data lake. So that's just an example of what we're doing right now to make those changes to make sure we're successful 100 years forward.
Yeah, that's great. And definitely the theme of the discussion, just making sure to be ready for change, even if you don't feel like you're maybe it's the exact right time. Just be ready to adapt when the time comes, because you could be left in the dust. Mike, thanks so much for joining us and sharing your story about innovation and change, and just leading Mel Foster for the last 20 plus years. It's really inspiring to hear how the leadership, the culture, and the innovation really continue to drive your company's success over a full century in business. Any listeners, if you're interested in more of Mel Foster's story or what they can do for you, go to melfoster.com or follow MFC Group on LinkedIn. For the rest of our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow the Bullpen podcast for more insights from other business leaders who are helping to shape the future of their industries. Until next time, we'll see you in the bullpen.